My name is Maria. I live on the island of Majorca, a place kissed by the sun and caressed by the sea. I've always been a quiet woman, someone who finds peace in small things: a morning coffee, the soft footsteps of my son heading out for school, the comforting silence of early dawn. I'm a wife, a mother, a preschool teacher. My life, from the outside, looked ordinary. But within me, there was always something else, seen invisible thread pulling me towards something I couldn't quite name. I've always had delicate lungs. Winters were never kind to me. A cold could easily turn into something more serious. Yet I managed. With nebulizers and rest, I always bounced back. Until the end of 2021. That December, I got sick again. At first, I wasn't worried. I had been through it before. But this time, something felt different. Each day, I grew weaker. My breath became shallow. The medicine wasn't helping. I was told I couldn't use the usual nebulizers because of new health protocols due to the pandemic. I felt like I was suffocating, but I kept silent. I didn't want to scare my husband or our 17-year-old son. I needed to be the strong one. I always had been. By New Year's Eve, I could no longer breathe properly. The air just wouldn't come. While others celebrated, I went to the hospital, convinced I just needed a simple treatment and I'd be home again. But the tests said otherwise. They told me I had bilateral pneumonia. 1/3 of each lung had stopped functioning. I was admitted immediately. For 4 days, they tried treating me, but nothing worked. My oxygen levels kept falling. They switched to a stronger oxygen tube. I still remember the feeling, like trying to breathe through a straw. My chest ached with every attempt to draw air. On the 3rd night, I woke up with an overwhelming panic. I had never felt anything like it before. I hadn't dreamed. I hadn't seen anything on the TVI. Hadn't even turned it on. But I was terrified. I called for help. A nurse gave me something to calm down, and eventually, I drifted into sleep. The next morning, the doctor walked into my room and said words that froze my blood. "We have to move you to the ICU. You're not improving. We may need to intubate you." That evening, surrounded by a flurry of medical staff, a doctor leaned down and said, "Maria, you're dying. We have to act now." She wasn't harsh. She was honest. And in that moment, I felt a strange acceptance. A part of me thought, maybe this is it. Maybe going isn't so bad. But then, like a flash of lightning, the face of my son came to my mind. His smile, his eyes, his youth. He wasn't a child anymore, but he still needed me. That thought anchored me. They offered me a final video call. I chose to speak to my husband. I asked him to take care of our son. I didn't cry, I couldn't. My voice was weak, but my soul was full of emotion. My husband had already given consent for the intubation. He wanted me to fight. I tried, I really did. And then, I let go. That was the moment everything changed. During those final conscious moments, something whispered in my heart. God speaks, but we often don't know how to listen. I had missed the signs before. So many moments in life had tried to tell me something, and now, as everything faded, I understood. If you've ever felt that quiet nudge in your spirit, something you couldn't explain but couldn't ignore, I invite you to discover 7 signs God is speaking to you and how to recognize them. You'll find the link in a first comment. It helped me understand what I once ignored. Maybe it will help you too. And if this story resonates with you, if you feel a quiet stirring in your soul, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is more than just a story. It's a shared journey of faith. And by joining us, you become part of a community that believes in something greater. The last thing I remember was the light above my bed. And then nothing. The moment I left my body, I expected light, peace, something warm and familiar. But that's not what happened. There was no tunnel, no gentle transition. I was pulled violently, almost into a dense, cold, and shadowy space that seemed to swallow every trace of comfort. I found myself in what I can only describe as a spiritual battlefield. a realm stripped of time and space. And standing before me was a presence. It had no face, no voice, but I knew exactly who it was. This being radiated hatred, like a weight pressing against my soul. I didn't hear it speak, yet its message thundered inside my consciousness: I will extinguish your light. In that realm, everything is telepathic. You don't just hear thoughts, you feel them. I could feel the ancient weight of this entity's hatred. It wasn't just personal, it was as if it carried the sorrow and resentment of the entire world. It attacked not with weapons, but with despair. I had never known fear like that. Over the course of 3 days, though, time was meaningless. There I was subjected to 3 distinct trials. Each one tested the core of my soul. And while I battled in that spiritual dimension, my physical body in the hospital faced its own war. 3 deadly infections entered my system. The most aggressive strain of COVID, a severe pulmonary bacterial infection, and a third that entered through my bloodstream. Each day I was spiritually attacked. My physical body took another blow. Doctors were losing hope. My family had been warned. Yet I continued to fight, but not with anger or force, with something far more fragile and far more powerful: faith. In that darkness, I didn't argue or plead. I simply repeated one phrase, again and again, like a mantra pulsing through my being. Only God in me, only light in me, only God. I said it silently. I said it desperately. I said it with my soul. And each time I did, the darkness recoiled, just a little. Each time I held on to that phrase, I felt a flicker of warmth return. The being kept trying to break me, but I refused to let go. And then came the pain of the world. Yes, the world. I wasn't just being tested, I was being made to feel the collective suffering of humanity, the loneliness of the abandoned, the silent screams of the abused, the weight of every child neglected, every tear ignored. It was unbearable. But through that unbearable sorrow, something was being revealed to me: how deeply disconnected humanity had become from its own soul. I wept not with my eyes, but from my spirit. And still, I held on. Only God in me. Looking back, I understand now. I wasn't being punished. I was being shown. I was being strengthened. Because faith that has never been tested cannot transform you, and transformation was coming. If you've ever felt surrounded by darkness in your own life, if you've fought silent battles that no one else could see, I want you to know, you're not alone. And sometimes, the simplest act of faith can shake the darkest realm. If you're here now, reading these words, I invite you to do something small but powerful. Comment Amen below as a sign that you choose light. Let it be your voice in the silence. And tell us, from which city are you joining us? We'd love to send a prayer your way, a blessing from our hearts to yours. Together, we can be a web of hope and healing across the world. I didn't know it yet, but my fight was not over. The light had not yet returned, but something was shifting. I could feel it. After 3 days engulfed in a darkness deeper than anything I had ever known, something changed. The weight lifted. The cold began to dissolve, and then light. Soft at first, like the very first light of dawn breaking through thick clouds. Then it grew warmer, fuller, more alive than anything I could ever describe with words. I found myself in a place where everything was white, not the sterile white of a hospital, but a living, breathing white. There were no walls, no ceiling, no ground, just a boundless expanse of pure light, like being wrapped inside a cloud of peace. It felt like eternity, and a single breath at the same time. Then a presence approached me. It was a familiar face, someone from my husband's family who had died a few years earlier. He didn't speak, but I heard his voice in my heart: "You will return, and you will be well." It was impossible. Medically, they had said I might survive, but I would never be the same. Yet here, I was being told I would return whole, and something inside me believed it. Then I saw him. Not in the way religious art depicts him, not with robes or a beard, but as pure awareness, as peace personified. It was Christ. He didn't need to say his name. My soul recognized him instantly, like remembering a song you didn't know you knew. He stood before me, and his presence filled me with a love so total, so unconditional, that all fear vanished. He didn't speak out loud. He looked at me, and the thought formed inside me with crystal clarity. "What are you doing with your life?" I broke inside, not because I felt judged, but because I felt loved, in spite of all I had not done. There was no anger in his question, just profound sadness that I had turned away from my purpose. I had been given gifts, moments, opportunities to act, to speak, to share, lighten. I had hidden, out of fear, out of convenience, out of a desire for a quiet life. That's when I realized so many of us walk through life receiving signs from God, nudges, dreams, feelings, coincidences, but we don't recognize them until it's almost too late. If you've ever wondered whether those quiet moments might mean something deeper, I invite you to explore 7 signs God is speaking to you and how to recognize them. The link is in the first comment. It's not just a list, it's a key to understanding what your soul may already be hearing. Christ then showed me something like a screen of light held gently in his hands. On it, I saw events that hadn't happened, yet things that would affect humanity. Not threats, not punishments, but necessary awakenings. He showed me my son, safe, growing, and I knew I would go back. He didn't tell me to return. He simply showed me the truth, and the truth was that I had work to do, that my life, as ordinary as it had seemed, was meant for something sacred, that I wasn't alone. None of us are. And then he looked at me again. I didn't want to leave, but I knew I would. I believe you're here reading this for a reason. If this moment, this story, has touched something in your heart, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your presence here is part of something greater. When we come together in faith, something sacred begins to stir. You are not just a viewer, you are part of a community that believes in healing, in divine purpose, and in light. Christ turned, and I followed, higher still, into places I never imagined existed. My journey wasn't over, and I wasn't the same. I was lifted again higher, lighter, freer. Each new realm I entered felt less like a place and more like a state of being. I no longer carried the weight of a body, nor the noise of fear. I was thought. I was soul. I was clarity. Christ was still with me, though now I perceived him not as a figure beside me, but as a radiant presence within and around all things. I watched him move ascending and descending, endlessly bridging the heavens and the earth. And I understood. He wasn't distant. He was involved, constantly, tirelessly. Through a knowing that went beyond words, I felt his heartbreak. Not the heartbreak of defeat, but of deep compassion for a world that had forgotten who it was. He showed me scenes, not visions of punishment, but of consequence. A humanity consumed by distraction, division, and a spiritual numbness that threatened to disconnect us from our divine source. Then, I saw Michael the Archangel. Until then, I had no particular connection to angels. I had always felt Christ, but never anything beyond. Yet there he was, majestic, firm, cloaked in golden light. He had no wings, no halo. Just an energy that radiated strength and justice. He stood like a warrior, but not of violence. A protector, a guardian. Michael left suddenly. I followed with my spirit, and what I saw shook me. An asteroid, immense, approaching Earth, not as fear, but as a signal, a call. And around it, I saw fleets of light celestial ships, not of fantasy, but of divine purpose. They were not attacking. They were trying to help. Trying to lessen the impact, divide its path, protect what could be protected. Michael returned, heavy with sorrow. He had done what he could. And then I heard it without sound, yet clearer than any voice. God spoke to Michael. There are things that must happen. That phrase. It echoed in my soul like a bell through eternity. Not all pain can be avoided. Not all warnings can be stopped. Sometimes, humanity needs to be shaken awake, not to be destroyed, but to remember God, to remember itself. I rose again, to a realm filled with translucent beings, neither male nor female, yet somehow both. They wore white robes, their energy refined, unblemished by human experience. These were souls who had never been incarnated. They watched Earth like one observes a fragile experiment, with care but without full empathy. They didn't understand the depth of human pain. Not really. And I, who had just felt the weight of the world's sorrow, spoke to them, not with anger, but with longing. You don't understand. Our souls suffer, and that suffering matters. They didn't argue, but they responded with something that pierced my heart. Wherever humanity goes, it brings corruption. It destroys. I had no defense, not because they were cruel, but because it was true. They showed me Earth again. I saw people from all over the world. I entered into their emotions. I became them. An elderly woman abandoned in a nursing home, clinging to a nurse's touch. A young person undergoing gender transition, lost in confusion and silent suffering. Families lied to. Souls disoriented. Hearts closed. I saw a city, especially in North America, where people ran home after realizing the truth had been hidden from them. They had not been told what was coming. Their leaders had known. And in that betrayal, humanity woke up not in peace, but in desperation. It was then, in the midst of that overwhelming awareness, that I whispered again to the light, God, have mercy on us. If you've ever felt the need to cry out, not from fear, but from love, from a place of hope that humanity can still heal, comment Amen below. Let that word be a seed of faith in this community of souls seeking light. And tell us where you're from, your city, your town, your village. We want to lift up your home in our prayers, to surround it with grace. I wasn't done rising. The journey wasn't over. But something sacred had been revealed, and I carried it with me. In that final realm, beyond thought and beyond fear, I felt myself dissolve into something greater. I was no longer Maria. I was consciousness. I was love. I was light. And in that state of surrender, I saw God. Not a figure, not a face, but a brilliance so complete, so infinite, that it contained everything: truth, beauty, justice, and mercy. I didn't look at him. I became part of him. And in that divine union, I felt the deepest compassion, not only for myself, but for all of creation. And then, from that sacred stillness, I sent out a prayer, not for my healing, not for my return, but for the world. God, have mercy on humanity. Shorten the time. We are suffering. At that moment, the light pulsed, not as an explosion, but as an answer, a yes, a wave of presence. And just like that, I was back. I opened my eyes in the intensive care unit on the 25th of January, 2022, 21 days after I had left. The doctors were stunned. No one expected me to wake up, let alone speak, let alone recover. But I did, rapidly, beyond logic. Within 10 days, I was home walking, breathing, alive. I still bore the mark of the tracheotomy, but not a single long-term complication. No brain damage, no organ failure, just life. Miraculous, inexplicable life. But I wasn't the same woman. I had made a promise to Christ, to the light, to the mission I had once tried to avoid. I had to speak. I had to share, not to convince, not to convert, but to awaken. To remind others that this life is sacred and that God speaks to us constantly in ways we often ignore. So I started. I told my story. I began small gatherings. I opened my heart. And then came the messages, the letters, the tears, the lives touched. People who, like me, had felt the divine knocking at the door of their soul but hadn't known how to answer. That's why I created something simple, something born from my experience and guided by that divine encounter. 7 signs God is speaking to you and how to recognize them. You'll find the link in the first comment. I believe, with all my heart, that it will help you notice what heaven may already be whispering in your life. This isn't about religion. It's about awakening, about living with your heart open, about forgiving, healing, and learning to walk in light, even through the shadows. Real spirituality isn't grand. It's humble. It's how you treat someone who doesn't love you back, how you speak when no one's listening, how you choose hope when despair seems easier. If something in this journey has spoken to you, I invite you now like this video and subscribe to the channel, not for numbers, not for praise, but so you can stay connected to a community that believes in the invisible, in the eternal, in the quiet truth that God is near. And if you feel moved in your spirit, comment Amen below and share with us the name of your city. We will pray for you. We will bless your name. We will unite our hearts across every language and every border. And now, before you go, I want to personally invite you to continue this journey of awakening. There is another video waiting for you, one that will reveal something glorious and transformative for your life. Just click on the video now appearing on your screen. Thank you for walking with me. Amen.